Hi, I'm Al Dare, and I'm at Mickey's Bait and Tackle, and we're in North Syracuse, and today we're going to talk more about tying jigs. We've already done a couple of these, and they seem to have been well received, and I think the emphasis on today's lesson is going to be not just tying jigs, but tying jigs with synthetics as well as natural bucktail. And this is a great lure for bass, for walleye, for northern pike, for trout, for anything that just about swims. The first thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to select one of these jig heads, and I'm going to place it in the jaws of my vise very carefully. Okay, it has to be positioned just right, so that you get a secure hold. And then secondly, I'm going to take my thread, which is on my bobbin, and I'm using a relatively heavy-duty thread because we're tying a decent-sized jig. This is about a 3/8 ounce. So you're going to want to use about a size A nylon. I'm using a flat wax nylon today. Okay, the first thing that I'm going to do is attach my thread by wrapping over itself at least 5 or 6 times. Always wrap away from you. Never wrap towards you. Once you get that established, you can let go of the bobbin. Then, of course, you're going to want to cut the tag of the thread, get that out of the way, and give it a few more wraps just to establish a base upon which your bucktail can be added. It'll adhere itself that much more readily if there's a base of thread there as opposed to bare metal or bare lead. You'll notice the style of jig head we're using is a ball collar, and this is designed specifically for the use of jig tying because the materials will flare. You'll see. I'm going to take a piece of bucktail. In this case, it's like a fluorescent fuchsia. I'm going to cut it, a section of it. We're going to be building this jig in sections. I think the most common error most people make is they try to put too much hair on the hook at once. So there we are. We have a nice piece of bucktail, and that's the first layer that we're going to add. Make sure the ends are nice and flat, nice and even. And make sure it's also the right length, too. You don't want it too long, you don't want it too short. There's a correct proportion. Proportion is something that you'll begin to take into consideration. The more you tie, the better you become at developing your own sense of proportion. Now I'll pinch this nice and even, and my first wrap is going to be nice and gentle. My subsequent wraps are going to have a little more pressure, and then we can give it the gas, give it a little more, so that adheres very nicely. That's not going to come out this way. Okay, there's the first stage. Again, we build this in stages. Okay, the second color that I'm going to use is a fluorescent chartreuse as a contrasting color. And I'll cut a section of that about the same length. Make sure that's nice and even also. And that's going to tie in just below the first clump of bucktail. Okay. The nice thing about a rotary vise is we can rotate it and expose that area where we want this material to lie. And I'm going to set that in there and begin to wrap gently at first. If you go if you use too much pressure at first, you're going to just push those materials away. See, you want to go gently at first, and then once you get a couple of wraps established, then you could add more pressure. Okay. See how that ball interacts with that material? It flares it. Okay. And it looks like we're going to have to add more material on the sides. Okay. What I'll do is I'll take a piece of orange material. We'll give this bucktail a tricolor look to it. Now it looks like we're going to be building this in 4 stages. And I am going to add some synthetics to this too, because it's nice when you can incorporate a flash. And there's such a range of synthetics that you can choose from today. So that'll be our third addition, right on the side here where there's a bare spot. Okay, just like that. Okay, it's a nice tricolor effect. And then I'm going to go back over to the other side and get another piece of orange. Smaller than the first two pieces. Okay. Trim the ends nice and even. And then add that to that bare spot that you see. Nice and easy at first, and then more pressure. Okay. So we have a nice tricolor jig, and when this is tied on at the line tie, this is actually going to be the bottom, the fluorescent fuchsia. The orange is going to be in the middle, and the chartreuse is going to be on top. And there's really nothing in nature that this jig resembles, not with these colors anyways. So I guess we'll put this into a certain classification. We'll call it an attractor pattern. It's certainly not imitative of anything. Now, if I want to add synthetics, which I want to do, and there's such a potpourri of synthetics that are available to the tire today. This happens to be a blue crystal flash. And what I'll do is I'll take some of this. And when it comes to flashy synthetics like Crystal Flash or Mylar, less is more. You really don't want to overdo it with this stuff. So I'm going to take a few strands of this. Okay, just like that. And I'm going to cut that. And we're going to tie that in, but we're going to tie that in such a manner so as to create a very sturdy jig tie. You know, normally I would just say just tie it in like you would your jig hair like this, but it wouldn't be as sturdy. So what I'll do is I'll take it in the middle, okay, like this, and I'm going to tie that in like that on the top a few times, and then I'm going to bend it over, doubling it in essence, and then continue to wrap. And that gives it rigidity, it gives it durability, it just makes it so that it's not going to pull out. So there we are. We continue to wrap that. A nice, neat collar. This is a hallmark of a professional tie. And there's your synthetic. Okay, again, the synthetic is going to be on the bottom. But see how that really accents the jig now? It gives it just the right amount of flash. Again, less is more when it comes to synthetics. And the last thing that I'm going to do here is I have to cut my thread eventually. If I did now, it's just going to unravel. So we have to whip finish. We could use a standard commercial whip finisher, or I could teach you how to whip finish by hand. Let's try the commercial one. We'll just hook it there, bring it around the bend, create like a triangle. Give it a few wraps. You're basically wrapping the thread over itself 6 or 7 times. Okay. Slip it off the bend, and then just pull with the bobbin, pulling the thread completely underneath itself. Okay. And then now I can cut the thread. Okay. Okay, the last thing you really need to do is you need to not only secure that with the proper whip finish knot, but you also have to add some head cement or clear nail polish. And what I usually like to do is I'll take the jigs, after I've tied several of them, out of the vise and put them into like a styrofoam block, okay? And I'll make sure I'll have all my jigs lined up rather nicely. And then at the last thing, what I'll do is I'll take my head cement and apply a coat of head cement to the wraps. You want to tie your jigs a little on the sparse side, because it's the sparser jigs that undulate, that have more action when in the water. Well, that was a beautiful tie. I like the tricolor effect, and I certainly like the addition of the synthetic. And the neat thing is that you know it's going to catch fish, not just fishermen. Jigs are unbelievable. This kit is available to you, along with other items of interest, at fishinglure.gift.com.
BucktailJig.com.
Yeah, we've been selling these for 50 years. It's hard to believe. And I think there's something to be said for the fact that they're so effective in what they do, hence the demand. I want to thank you for being with me, learning how to tie the Bucktail Jig with synthetics. I'm Al at Mickey's Bait and Tackle, saying so long.